Hey everybody, how you doing? I'm Max E. Ernst. Really excited here to talk some hockey with you guys. Got my buddy with me, Jay Willie. How you doing, Jay?
Oh, I'm not bad. I'm super excited for this slate coming up. It's a pretty solid 8 game slate that we have for Thursday night.
Yes, I'm excited for the slate. Some interesting matchups here tonight, and then also, we got all these NBA guys hopefully coming to play some hockey tonight. If you're new to the sport of DFS hockey, hopefully Jay and I can give you some pointers, clue you in on some good plays tonight, and you guys can come, third and fourth place to Jay and I.
That's the plan.
That is the plan. So we got 8 games. What we're going to do here is we're just going to go through each game relatively quickly, try and give you some insight on the interesting plays, whether we're fading, whether we're not, what we think might be chalky, and hopefully point out some good cash game plays in addition to tournament plays and goaltenders as well. Goaltenders are always tricky business. And since we're recording pretty early here, we don't have confirmations on most of them, but we have a good idea of who will be starting. So without further ado, I think we should jump in. All right.
Absolutely. Let's roll.
So the first one up here is the New York Rangers at the New York Islanders. The Rangers, definitely a formidable offensive team, not the best defensive team. Islanders on home ice here. Certainly got to have some interest in the John Tavares line tonight, no?
Yeah, no, absolutely. The Rangers are pretty have been playing pretty solid of late, but that Islanders top line is just unstoppable on a lot of nights, especially when they're on home ice. So I will definitely be considering all three of those guys in a nice little stack.
And for those who don't know, the top line there is going to be Anders Lee, John Tavares, and Josh Bailey. Lee and Bailey, relatively affordable. Tavares usually priced up pretty significantly, but you can still stack that line with a lot of different lines tonight. Do you like to include Letty on your stack there, Jay? I've been leaving him off lately.
If usually it depends on what other defenseman options I have. If I have the money left over in that kind of price range, and he is a viable play. He's ever since Doug Waite's taken over, he's basically been starting to put up the peripherals, so like the shots and the block shots and all that fun stuff. So he's definitely an option for me, but he's not necessarily someone that I have to have with that stack.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So if you're looking at the Islanders side, the Tavares line is the clear top play there. On the other side of the puck, we know that the Islanders aren't a great defensive team by any means. They're actually, I think, since December, the third worst team in 5v5 expected goals against per 60 minutes. Hasn't gotten much better under the new coach, though perhaps a little bit. So the Rangers offense definitely in play here. Of course, met with a familiar problem, which is who do you play from the Rangers offense? They have 3 capable scoring lines, and I think you could justify any one of them against this Islanders team, no?
No, you certainly can. But naturally, they've been keeping Kreider and Zuccarello together for the most part, and those two are maybe the 2 most dynamic wingers offensively on the team. So that's obviously going to be your first option. Whether it's Zibanejad in between them or Stepan, it doesn't really matter too much to me. I think those 2 are kind of interchangeable offensively.
Yeah, we saw they tinkered with the lines a little bit last game and had Buchnevich skating with Zibanejad and Nash, which about maybe a period into the game fell apart and went into the blender. And it looks like Buchnevich is going to be a scratch tomorrow is what I'm reading from the beats. And Pumple will come in on the 4th line. So Jimmy Vesey back into the top 6. He's really cheap, though. He scored a great goal last game. He's been a little cold lately. I think you can play that 2nd line as well. And then the 3rd line for the Rangers has been incredibly productive with JT Miller and Kevin Hayes and Michael Grabner. And I've been saying for weeks now that they can't sustain it, but they keep scoring. So I'm really not going to fault you guys anymore if you go to that 3rd line.
Yeah, no, they at even strength, they're a very, very good line. But certainly for considering what only one of them gets power play time, if at all. Like Kevin Hayes might get some power play 2 time. The other 2 do not get any power play time. I don't think. Maybe JT Miller does once in a while, but yeah, no, it's not necessarily a line that I like rostering, just simply because they're not going to get the power play opportunities, and what they've done at even strength, though impressive, and although they are a great line, that it is a little bit above expectations for them going forward.
Yeah, I think JT Miller has started to see some PP time. He has like think he has points in 7 straight games and like 14 out of the last 15. So if I'm taking my glasses off a little bit and wiping off some bias, it's kind of hard to deny that he's been awesome. I mean, he's been awesome. He's 5,800. I'm certainly not going to fault you guys for playing him. But, you know, it's a question whether he'll be able to sustain this production throughout the rest of the year. So just to summarize this game a little bit, I think both offenses are in play. It should be a high event, pretty high scoring affair. There's no doubt the intensity will be there with it being a rivalry game. I'm not going to look to either goaltender here, I don't think. There's probably some upside there, but a lot of risk. Do you have interest in the goalies?
No, not really. Certainly not on the Rangers side. On the Islanders side, if it ends up being Greiss, I mean, Greiss is a great goalie, but the Rangers are not necessarily a team that you want to target against. Meanwhile, if it ends up being JF Berube, he hasn't proven anything to me at the NHL level, so he certainly wouldn't be in play for me regardless.
Yeah, Greiss 7,200 on DraftKings, so he does become a viable, arguably contrarian option at that price, I suppose, if he starts. Why don't we move on to the next one here? A far less interesting game for DFS, in my opinion. We've got the Ottawa Senators traveling to New Jersey to face the Devils. Corey Schneider is already confirmed in net for the Devils here. I assume Ottawa might be a small favorite, or this game will be a pick'em, but this is really not an interesting DFS game. It's probably going to be a pretty slow-paced affair, low-scoring affair with maybe not a lot of scoring chance attempts, shot attempts, or anything. Do you have the same read, Jay?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. If this was an Ottawa was favored or a pick 'em, then I would definitely be picking the New Jersey side. I just think home ice matters that much. New Jersey's a solid team, but you and I have discussed it before. There's something about the scorekeepers in New Jersey. They do not record shots at the same pace that other home rinks do. So there's definitely a scorekeeper's bias that kind of limits how the upside of New Jersey home games. That said, both New Jersey's top 2 lines are cheap. Same with Ottawa's. There's some great stackable lines in this game, but this is not going to be an offensive game. So it's one of those ones where I can see it justifiable from a GPP perspective. Cheap stacks that come at reasonable ownership, but outside of that, I'm not looking for the world from these.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't see a lot of lines from this game that are capable of like really big multi-point performances given what the pace is expected to be. For cash games, not really a place I'm looking. There are a few guys in this game who are good shot volume guys, Mike Hoffman, Taylor Hall, arguably Erik Karlsson. But given the rest of the slate, we've got some seriously bad defensive teams in play against some strong offenses elsewhere. I think this is a justifiable candidate for a full fade in all formats, honestly.
Yeah, well, it's certainly probably the most justifiable of all the games.
Yeah. Now the goaltenders, I wouldn't fault you for looking towards the goaltenders here, given that we expect the game to be low scoring. But for tournaments, I usually like a little bit more upside. This game could feature maybe 25 shots from each side. I'd say it's pretty unlikely to feature more than 35 from either side. So you're not going to get that peak performance kind of game from a goalie here.
No, I agree 100%. This, as far as the goaltenders go, both good goalies rolling tonight, but I'm not interested in either side. So
it sounds like we can move on from this one. The next one is the Winnipeg Jets playing in Pittsburgh against the Penguins. I assume that Pittsburgh is going to be like a -200 plus Vegas favorite in this game, probably featuring 5.5 at least, or maybe even a 6 over under. The Pittsburgh offense is the best in the NHL. Evgeny Malkin back in the lineup, playing alongside Patrick Hornquist. Had an awesome game last time out, he assisted on a highlight reel goal. The assist was really the key play in the goal to Phil Kessel there. The Pens offense should really roll here. So I would look to get a lot of exposure in both GPPs and cash games.
Yeah, no, certainly the Pittsburgh side of things, it always just comes down to who do you want on Pittsburgh. Is it the Crosby line? Is it the Malkin line? Is it the Kessel line? Certainly for me, and usually for most pros, it's wherever Hornqvist is. So I would probably lean the Malkin Hornqvist as my favorite line. And if you want to like use a super cheap player, Scott Wilson, you could do worse than Scott Wilson stack with him. And he enables you to pay up and get some other stacks to go with him. And then the Crosby line, Crosby, Gensel, and Kunitz, if they end up sticking together tomorrow, it's a pretty solid line. The Crosby could do with some better line mates, but Crosby can make guys like Gensel and Kunitz perform.
Yeah, Sidney Crosby is going to be very expensive across the industry for those of you who are new to the sport or haven't played in a while. But he's obviously got the highest upside in the league probably right now. Malkin more affordable, so I agree that I would lean toward the Malkin Hornqvist combination, both for the savings and because you get a little more upside there, a little better correlation on the power play. What about Chris Letang here? Chris Letang is still cheaply priced. Think he's a fine play, particularly given the Winnipeg penalty kill is absolute garbage.
It's absolute garbage, and they can't stop taking penalties to save their life. So yeah, absolutely, Chris Letang's in play. Probably the top defensive option tonight.
So given that Pittsburgh's going to be a big favorite here, I assume it's going to be Matt Murray. It could be Marc-Andre Fleury. Be sure to check, guys. But he's going to be a popular option, I think.
Yeah, no, certainly viable. I would. I mean, I like Winnipeg as a team. They have a lot of offensive talent, but some games they struggle to put it together. I would still say because of my expectations for Pittsburgh to win, if it's Matt Murray is one heck of a goalie. If he's rolling, then I feel a little bit more confident in it. But because of the expectations that Pittsburgh wins, either one will be viable tonight.
Yeah, I'm just looking at some expected goals numbers here. And, Pittsburgh is in really the bottom tier of the league in expected goals against over the last couple months here at even strength. And I don't think their penalty kill is terrible, but it's not great either. So I think the Winnipeg offense is probably going to be pretty contrarian. But, I could see playing it at low percentage. It has the upside. The Scheifele-Laine combination obviously connected last time out. Laine had a hat trick. And then at the same on the other line, the Wheeler-Little combination has shown that upside in the past as well. So I think if you're theorizing that you could get those Winnipeg guys at 10% or lower, which I think you could, there's certainly a viable GPP option tonight.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love that. I think that Winnipeg will go pretty low owned, but at the same time, I mean, there is a bit of caution to be had with Pittsburgh's numbers lately. They have been dealing with injuries. Letang and Dumoulin were out for a while there on defense. Malkin was out, and he's, in my opinion, he's one of the most underrated defensive centers in the game. So I think that they will improve defensively, but even at their peak, they weren't a great defensive team. So certainly Winnipeg's side of things does intrigue me as far as GPPs go, and either one of those top two lines. With Laine going off in the last game, you could certainly look at the Little Wheeler and Ehlers combination, because all three of those guys can put up fantasy points.
Yeah, and so with the Little Wheeler Ehlers combination, Jacob Trouba plays with those guys, at least two of them. I think Wheeler's on the other power play unit, but Trouba with at least two of those guys on the power play. Trouba's been awesome lately, and I've seen a lot of the Sharp players getting on that train a few games ago because he's a high floor guy. He's going to get you the peripherals, the shots, the block shots, and then he's been showing some scoring upside as of late. Because normally, your first inclination is like Dustin Byfuglien. I'm going to stack him with my Winnipeg line, but Trouba maybe has been a slightly more reliable option this year.
Yeah, well, certainly of late. I don't know about this year overall, but as of late, he's about, I think on DK he's about $1,000 cheaper, maybe even more than Dustin Byfuglien over the past while, and he's been putting like his combined shots and block shots over the last 10 or 15 games has exceeded 5 total per game. So like you're working with like a 2.5 point floor in a lot of cases. So that's certainly makes him an intriguing play and a lot of matchups, especially tonight too.
Yeah, definitely a cash game option in my opinion.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Yeah, and on the Winnipeg side in net, it could be Connor Hellebuck, it could be Michael Hutchinson. I think Andrej Pavlik is still hurt. I'm not touching that side against the Pittsburgh offense.
Yeah, not a chance. You don't need to go there tonight. Certainly on an 8-game slate. Like there's if it's like a 2 or 3 gamer, absolutely go nuts with whatever the heck you want. But you don't need to be that crazy with your goalies on this slate.
So the next one's the Colorado Avalanche, the lowly Colorado Avalanche, heading into Buffalo to take on the mediocre Buffalo Sabres. This is a game that could feature a lot of goals, I think. Neither one of these teams very good defensively. Buffalo started the year off, or played at times pretty solid at even strength defensively. Lately, not so great. The Buffalo penalty kill, one of the worst in the league. The Colorado penalty kill, just slightly better, but also one of the worst in the league. My first inclination in this game is to go to Jack Eichel, Sam Reinhart, and then ideally Evander Kane will be on that line, though he missed the last game sick. What do you think, Jay?
Yeah, absolutely. Ryan O'Reilly is going to be charged with trying to slow down Nathan MacKinnon tonight, and so that hinders both those players a lot. Ryan O'Reilly is an elite defensive center, so that tempers the expectations for Nathan MacKinnon. Though it doesn't altogether suggest that he shouldn't be considered for GPPs at all. Nathan MacKinnon is so talented that he can get his shots even with an elite defensive center opposite him. But certainly Ryan O'Reilly are still pretty solid on the offensive side, so they are in play, and they're a cheaper alternative to Jack Eichel. But Jack Eichel is certainly the one that you look for in this game. He's just been an absolute dynamo of late, and if he ends up playing with somebody like Evander Kane, if Evander Kane ends up being healthy enough to go tonight, then that would certainly be the top option from this game.
Yeah, I think if Evander Kane is healthy enough to play, he's been really, really, really exceptional lately, and he's only priced at around 5,600 on DraftKings, which is too cheap given the production and given that he did most of that playing away from Eichel. So he's a strong cash game play if he's in the lineup tonight. I tend to agree that Ryan O'Reilly is a great defensive center, going to be tasked with shutting down MacKinnon, who's been playing alongside Landeskog and Rantanen lately. And that's really the only scoring threat this lineup has had lately is that Landeskog, MacKinnon, Rantanen line. Matt Duchene has been really doing nothing. So if we assume that Ryan O'Reilly can shut that one line down, it should be pretty easy for Buffalo to hold Colorado in check in this game, which would make Robin Lehner a good play.
Yeah, I agree. I think Robin Lehner makes for a fine play tonight. He's a solid goalie, so certainly I would put him. I mean, I haven't had a chance to do rankings yet, but I would say that he might make the top 5 for me.
Yeah, I think he's got to be up there. Just we know Colorado is arguably the worst team in the league. Probably at this point, definitively the worst team in the league. They struggle to score goals. They struggle to defend. Buffalo should have no problem putting up some goals and winning this game. I think they'll be a large Vegas favorite as well. On the defensive end, Rasmus Ristolainen firmly in play and the preferred option to stack with whichever Buffalo line, the first line or the second line you choose to go with in tournaments.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's he's one of the top options tonight for sure.
I did see some people, some good players playing Jake McCabe last game, which I found interesting. There's been a lot of strong punt defense options as of late, particularly coming out of Anaheim. And some people chose to go with McCabe over those guys. And I suppose it's because his block shots provide a decent floor and he's seeing a little power play time now. Usually not a guy I look to. What do you think about Jake McCabe, Jay?
Yeah, he's still not quite there yet for me too. I usually tend to lean towards the Anaheim guys or maybe some other guys that have been doing it a little more consistently.
Yeah, I think he's a little bit over 3K. You know, if he was like right around the min price, I wouldn't have a problem with it. But I just think there's guys who provide you equivalent floor with maybe a little more upside than Jake McCabe.
Yeah, he doesn't shoot. So like, what are you hoping for with that kind of punt? Like, I mean, certainly when you're referring to the last time around, yeah, like you said, the Anaheim defensemen were there. even Thomas Hickey was like 3,100, and I would go for him over Jake McCabe in a heartbeat.
I saw that you played Thomas Hickey on that slate, Jay, which I find interesting because, Brandon Montour has kind of been the go-to punt guy. And you opted for Hickey for a little differentiation there. And I actually think it worked out. I think he outscored Montour.
Yeah, he had a pretty solid night. Like not spectacular, but his peripherals did him justice there.
Yeah. So verdict is Jake McCabe, not our favorite option, but you could maybe do a little worse. Let's move on to the fifth game here. We've got the Vancouver Canucks traveling to St. Louis to take on the Blues. Jake Allen probably going to be in net for the Blues. They're going to be on the back-to-back, and Carter Hutton got a shutout last night. So I think St. Louis will still be a favorite here despite the home back-to-back, probably a very sizable one. People like to pick on Vancouver. Vegas likes to pick on Vancouver. Vladimir Tarasenko's line, certainly the top play from this team, though there are some value options here as well. What do you think about this game, Jay?
Yeah, no, Tarasenko is definitely the play from this game. This might be like next to the Ottawa, New Jersey game. It might be the game that I'm least interested in, just because, like you mentioned, St. Louis on the home back-to-back, Vancouver not being a good team. It doesn't make for a whole lot of intrigue. But Vladimir Tarasenko is just about matchup proof. So I'm certainly I wouldn't fault anyone for looking his way. And Vancouver side, yeah, they're cheap options. They're not my favorite options because St. Louis plays a pretty solid defensive game. But yeah, that's kind of how I feel. Tarasenko is the one guy that's obviously going to stand out from a game like this.
What about that St. Louis third line with Barbashev and Agostino there? I saw you played them last night, and Barbashev scored a goal. So they're really cheap. I mean, you can fit anybody in if you throw that pair in.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Agostino was absolutely lighting it up in the AHL for pretty much the whole year, and so now that he's up, he's been performing pretty well all the same. And Barbashev, I mean, obviously he's a punt center, and he's been getting lucky scoring some goals early. So he's just that type of sweet spot where you need, like, if you need to punt, and you have, like, yeah, he might not even have the greatest of numbers. He might not be shooting all that much or what have you, but hey, if you can find something that's scoring goals or it might have a shot for you, then by all means go ahead.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that he's 2,700 on DraftKings, and if that enables you to afford a Sidney Crosby, I would go for it. 2,800, excuse me. On the Vancouver side here, Bo Horvat still injured. I assume that he's going to miss this game as well. He was really the exciting play throughout the year for me. I think it's pretty clear at this point that the Sedins are on the decline. They're older now. They're not producing at the same level, and they can't carry this team anymore. So I really have no interest in the Vancouver offense outside of maybe a couple of the defensemen, given that they're cheap.
Yeah, no, and even then, the defensemen have kind of been lagging lately. Vancouver side of thing is just not overly exciting. Yeah, they provide cheap options, but there's probably other cheap options elsewhere that might be in better spots.
What about Jake Allen?
Yes and no. Like, it's a great spot for him, but his team is on the back-to-back, and I still don't think he's all that good. So, yeah, there are better options out there, in my opinion.
The home back-to-back, never a great spot to be in. So Jay's recommending a cautious approach with St. Louis here, and I tend to agree. Let's move on to the next one. We've got the Dallas Stars in Minnesota taking on the Wild. The Minnesota Wild, the best defensive team in the NHL. Dallas, arguably the worst defensive team in the NHL lately. They've been letting in goals like it's nobody's business, and the Minnesota offense has been rolling. I'm intrigued to see what the Minnesota lines will be. You're going to have to check with the beat writers, check with some of the sites out there because they've been changing with relative frequency. I think one thing we know for sure is that we're going to see the Zucker, Koivu, Granlund line out there tonight, probably trying to shut down the Spezza-Sagan combination. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, certainly. It's It's funny that you mentioned how bad Dallas's defense has been. Their offense has been pretty phenomenal too lately. And my analytics article that I'm going to be writing up later, I'm actually looking at Dallas. I'm focusing on Dallas and how last year they were the highest paced team in the league, and this year they started out as a reasonably high paced team, but then they kind of lagged there. They had to deal with a lot of injuries, but lately, ever since the turn of the new year, they've been insanely high paced, and so as a result, this whole game's in play. Like even as a contrarian play, I don't mind rolling some Dallas players because this game's going to have a lot of action. Yeah, Bruce Boudreau really likes to slow things down a fair bit, but certainly I think that. I think I kind of like both sides of this game, but Minnesota's side is the side to play basically. Any one of their top two, and depending on how things shake out, maybe even their top three lines are viable.
Yeah, I think Minnesota will probably be the chalkiest spot of the night. The only thing that might prevent it from being extremely chalky is that the lines are fairly balanced and there's not a definitive go-to spot. I think people will roster the Stahl Niederreiter combination. People will roster the Koivu Zucker Granlund line, and then people may even dip down into what I assume will be the third line with Parise and Pominville, I think.
Yeah,
but exactly. Like I said, keep an eye on those lines.
Yeah, no. Certainly, when they're at home, the Koivu line is charged with so much defensive responsibility that they get hampered a bit at home, and the expectations for them at home are a little bit lower. But that said, they like the top line or whoever will have to deal with Jamie Benn's line or Seguin, depending on how they split that up. So that they're going to be dealing with some tough lines, regardless of who gets rolled when.
Yeah, so given the strength of the Dallas offense going up against a really strong defense here, you could see a strong performance from Devan Dubnyk in net. Definitely an option that has a lot of upside tonight, but there's some risk there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's a bit of risk there, but Devan Dubnyk still makes for a solid play because, like you said, that floor should be there. Minnesota suppresses the high danger chances or the scoring chances like crazy at home. It's insane how little scoring chances they give up. Like Devan Dubnyk leads the league in save percentage, and his but he's not one of the top performing goalies of the year because Minnesota's defense has just been so good that his save percentage should be that high, which is insane to me. But
yeah, it's kind of like Nashville has been for years now, protecting Pekka Rinne, making him look great when really it's the system in large part that is accomplishing a lot of that. We've got two more games on the slate here, so we're going to try and go through them a little quicker to get out of here with enough time. I've got Philadelphia heading into Edmonton to take on the Oilers. The Flyers played last night. They're going to be on the back-to-back. The Oilers with the rest advantage here. Connor McDavid got to be in the conversation as a GPP option tonight, probably playing on a line with Patrick Maroon and Jordan Eberle. We saw Maroon and McDavid do some damage last time out. However, Eberle had a real poor game in terms of hitting the score sheet. I think he was held off despite his line mates notching several points, which was frustrating for some of us who rostered him.
Yeah, certainly. I was one of those people. Maroon and McDavid, I wrote them both up the other day because they are really the drivers of this offense for Edmonton. Leon Draisaitl would be probably the third best driver of offense for the team, but McDavid and Maroon are the draws that stir the drink. So when they're playing together, absolutely 100%. I'm interested in them, and I'm interested in them tonight.
Yeah, I think my tendency here is to ignore the Philadelphia offense, given the slate, given the options on the slate, given that they haven't been very impressive of late, and they'll be on the back-to-back here. So I have some interest in Cam Talbot if he starts, which he should. And also on the blue line, we saw Oscar Klefbom have a big game last time out, and it looks like he's taken over on the top power play unit with Andrej Sekera moving to the second unit.
Yep. Nope. That's I still don't mind Sekera in some spots if you need the savings, but certainly Klefbom is the play on the defensive side of things. And when it comes to the goalie, Cam Talbot is probably one of the top options tonight. The Edmonton defense isn't very good, but Cam Talbot is a good goalie, so that makes up for it. and yeah, I fully expect Edmonton to be a solid favorite in this game. So I do like him tonight.
Yeah, I think we can move on to the next one, the final game of the slate, which should be an interesting one. We got some late night hammer action in play. We've got the lowly Arizona Coyotes in Los Angeles taking on the Kings. Los Angeles Kings, what I would consider one of the stronger teams in the league, though they've struggled to score at points. They've had some defensive lapses this year. They've had some injuries plaguing the lineup. They're getting healthier. They've been playing a lot better. They're coming off the 5-day break here. And this season we've seen a good majority of the teams who coming off the break come off soft, come off slow, get dominated early in the games, in particular when they come off the break. But given the mismatch here, I'm still all over LA. It looks like we're going to see prospect on the top line with Anze Kopitar and Tyler Toffoli. I believe his name is Adrian Kempe. I just want to make sure I'm got his first name right here. Yeah, it's Adrian Kempe, who's a Swedish player, first-round draft pick in 2014, and he's min-price on DraftKings. Not available on FanDuel, unfortunately, but got to be one of the top value plays of the night at min-price on DraftKings.
Yeah, absolutely. Throwing him in there with some other lines will definitely make for some savings. But yeah, just pay, like I would advise that people pay close attention to the lines during practice tomorrow or tonight or today, I guess, for the Kings, and just see who they roll, because I mean, like you say, like he's on there now, slated to be on there now, but we know how Daryl Sutter can be, and we know that he can just change the lines on a whim. So certainly pay attention to it and make sure that he is skating with them. If he is, then either one of the top two lines is viable. Kopitar, Toffoli is a great combo. Jeff Carter, Tanner Pearson is a great combo too. And Dustin Brown, you could do worse than him for a cheap play alongside them. Going up against a pretty bad Arizona team, that makes for I just think it makes for a pretty solid play all around, regardless of the fact that they're coming off their bye.
Yeah, I think the full top six for LA is in play. On the blue line, Doughty and Muzzin both firmly in play. Muzzin probably my preferred option because you get some savings, and his peripherals have been great lately. You could even justify Alec Martinez, depending on what the power play units look like, which will likely just be a complete guessing game. So you might get some really low ownership on Martinez, but I would stick to Muzzin and Doughty, given that we won't know much.
Yeah.
Do you have any interest in the Arizona side, Jay?
Not really. Los Angeles plays such a smothering defensive game that even if you expect Arizona to find some magic here, they're not gonna blow them out of the water. So you don't have to worry about fading a team like Arizona tonight.
Okay, so Peter Budaj is an option, given that we're really not on Arizona and we think LA will dominate this game. However, whenever you play Peter Budaj, the LA Kings suppress shots so well that he's really not a high upside option. He's probably pretty safe for the victory in this game. I expect LA to be a big Vegas favorite, but not the kind of spot where he's going to make 30-plus saves. Would you agree?
No, I agree with that.
All righty, so that wraps it up for us, guys. Before we go, I'm just going to give you my two top stacks of the night for tournaments, which, though they'll be chalky, is going to be the Malkin-Hornquist line from Pittsburgh for me, followed by that Kopitar Toffoli Kempe line, which I think really will enable you to stack a lot of things with it, given Kempe's min price. Jay, can you give me your two stop stacks of the night?
Yeah, certainly. I would say if I would probably go with Minnesota, either 1 or 3, probably Minnesota 3, because you got Charlie Coyle, you got Zach Parise, and you have Jason Palmaville. All three of them can provide offense for you. So of the 3 lines for Minnesota tonight, I think that one is probably my favorite. And then beyond that, like your Pittsburgh and LA suggestions are pretty much spot on. if I were to venture with one outside of them, I would maybe go with the Eichel line, Eichel and hopefully if it ends up being Eichel, Kane, and Reinhart, then that would definitely be a one of the top stacks tonight for sure.
I would agree with that. Always looking to target against a weak Colorado team. All right, guys, that wraps it up for us. I hope we provided you some insight, and I hope you guys play some hockey GPPs on this All-Star break. Jay and I will be back on the podcast next week, I believe on Tuesday. And until then, hope you guys win all the money. Have a good one.